I'm sorry I couldn't put all my good colleagues on this list, but all of us know how instrumental we were in helping build a generation of Renaissance men. Remember that? Renaissance men?
Still are.
Yes.
And you still are. Yes. Many years ago, I received a copy of this book called "What Color Is Your Parachute?" I spent hours wearing out pages trying to find myself what I want to be when I grow up. And each time I completed this section where it says, your career options are nothing but teacher. I said, are you kidding me? That's the last thing I want. I said, Karen, there's something wrong with this book. I'm not going to be a teacher. There's no way. Anyway, long story short, I went off and I did other things. I made hats. Believe it or not. I buffed rings. You know, this diamond stuff. I mixed martinis because I was a bartender for 20-some years. I wrote press releases. I canvassed political campaigns. I sold batteries at Radio Shack for crying out loud. But in the end, I went back to school for my teaching certificate, and just after taking the exam, my good friend Tom O'Malley called me and he said, "Would you like to come to St. Francis to teach?" Okay. Pete Cavaretta hired me on the spot. And I went to Karen's office and I knocked on her door and I said, "Come on." And she said, "What's the verdict?" I said, "I'm a teacher." And it was the happiest day of my life. I became a teacher, and throughout those years, and the hundreds of students who sat in my classroom and witnessed my tantrums. Hey, you guys remember the tantrums? Yeah, right. The poignant moments. Some stupid dunderhead fell asleep. Yeah, right. Suddenly, my eraser flew out of my hand and struck him in the head. I guess. Well, it didn't fly out of my hand. It just tossed it. They say, "Oh, he threw erasers." No, I didn't do that, really. Or sometimes my podium would suddenly fly over, crash, and it'd wake up half the class because I didn't know what I was doing. Or that poor student, I think it was one of the bald kids, who fell asleep and his shoes were off. And I picked up his shoes and I threw them out the window. And he had to go fetch them out of a snowbank. Poor kid. Well, but I usually kept my cool. We made a joke of it, and we do now. No big deal. We all laughed, moved on. And most of my classes inevitably ended up with regaling the boys with something that had nothing to do with what we were talking about before. Or so they thought. You guys remember what's the difference in an orange? Yes, something. A bicycle, because the best has anyway. Well, there was a method to my madness, but it just took you a while to figure it out. But go back to the yearbook, there's a section in the yearbook that said this year, which teacher would be the best president in the United States? And one of the students commented that, "Gee, Mr. Shea would be cool, because it would be interesting." Well, I think we have a president who's pretty interesting, but not as interesting as I would be. However, in my 25 years at St. Francis High School, I strove to make every class interesting. It didn't always work out, and naturally, but I think for the most part, I didn't disappoint too many. Or create anxiety at a level that would probably disrupt your lives enough to make you want to drop out of school, commit heinous crimes, or even join the priesthood. Instead, I drew on characters from the novels and short stories and the plays and the poems that we talked about, and only to inspire you and guide you. Characters like Johnny Tremaine, Holden Caulfield, Atticus Finch, Beowulf, Tom Sawyer, Edmund Dantes. And anybody here remembers those epitaphs from Spoon River's anthology, The Graveyard? Characters who struggled to understand their lives and the place in the world that they would somehow find themselves. Some, like Atticus, found it. Others, like Holden or Pip, Great Expectations, they didn't. And it's through their strengths and their weaknesses that allow us to learn to manage our expectations in the real world. Yes, the real world. There is one. And you guys realize that after high school. The one we face each day without screaming, "Help!" Suddenly, your high school years are over. And we find life is tough. There aren't many safety nests. There aren't any buffer zones. There's no easy way, really. And we learn that we have to overcome our greatest and most intimate fears and problems. But not tonight. I can't see you, but I look above me and I see faces, people I love so much and care for, and who obviously care for each other. You wouldn't be here otherwise. And I'm reminded how much I've learned from you as much as you have learned from me. And how important friends and family are. When that cry for help is actually answered. And why it's important to remind ourselves that we're not alone, that we're all in this together. I just want to thank all of you for keeping a special place in your heart for those like me who've lent a hand and shared some knowledge and advice so you too can reach your expectations. I especially like to thank my wife, Karen. My girls, Elizabeth, Maggie, and Kate. Mostly for holding me together and just for holding me. Special thanks to Sean Lafferty. Where's Sean? Thank you, Sean. Sean stepped up and he put this thing together, and especially for the Facebook thing, because there's so many guys out there who couldn't make it. And boy, I can't be, well. I want my fellow teachers to know that I really miss them and I love them. And their lives were affected as much as anyone else's here because of my departure and what happened. But a very special thanks to all the alma mater guys. You decided that St. Francis High School was not going to become just another factory of students pushed out. And I hope that you really think that St. Francis is a place that's viable and it's wonderful, because I do. And whatever happens to from now, they're not here. And that hurts me. And finally, I really do want to thank this current St. Francis High School faculty, administration, whose letter explaining my departure gave us all a real terrific example in, what's the word, guys? Verisimilitude. Now, if I need to explain that, verisimilitude is nothing more than very similar to truth. You guys who sat in my classroom, first thing I put on the board was verisimilitude. Hey, this is the word. And there's nothing in life that is true. It's only similar to truth. And that's what happened to me. And God, I'm so grateful all you people are here. And I thank you. To the bottom of my heart.